Good afternoon. Nice to be speaking with y'all today and sharing more about my practice. As Jabari said, I'm from Lagos, Nigeria, and I'm a sculptor. I work with different materials, but over the past few years, predominantly glass, especially kiln-formed glass. So I'll be sharing some of my practice and my works with you. I think of how I got into art, and it's very unconventional. I actually studied law and did the bar and then applied for an MFA at Parsons. And I would say art has always been my passion. It's just a way of expressing myself, thinking through issues around me, and I couldn't deny that at some point. I was like, I need to try and see whether I have any talent for this or any inkling to pursue this further. So I applied to Parsons and did my MFA for 2 years and came out of the program even more convinced that art is something that I wanted to pursue. My inspirations start from my background. As a Nigerian woman, I am very influenced by the women in my family. She passed earlier this year, but I was very close with my grandmother, who is furthest on the right on the screen. So this is a 4-generation picture of the women in my family. My mother is on the left, my great-grandmother in the middle, my sister is a baby, who's the oldest in my family, and my grandmother to the right. And I think of this picture a lot as how I started thinking about culture, background, womanhood, sisterhood, what gets passed down from generation to generation, and dress, fashion, adornment, ways of presenting oneself. As you can see, all the women in the picture have fabric wrapped around their head, and headdress is very important in many Black cultures, many African cultures, and in West Africa we call it gele. So I've grown up seeing that all my life, and I wanted to incorporate that in my work, which is, you'll see some of my early works later on have that in the works. Also, a huge part of what I think about is African design techniques. The picture here shows an Ife head, which are these artifacts that were discovered by Leo Bright, I believe a German explorer in Nigeria in about 1897 or so. And the picture on the right is some of these artifacts have been dug up, and they took a picture of them. They were made by local Yoruba craftsmen, which Yoruba is my tribe in the southwest Nigeria. And they referred to deities and kings and queens and people of prominence at the time. But what distinguished them was the craftsmanship, the expertise and skill that was used to make them. And they also had these incised lines on the face. Tribal marks are very important in many African cultures and distinguish tribe from tribe. So the mark making became a kind of part of showing the self and identifying oneself, which I became very interested in, mark making on gestures on the body that distinguish the self. So this is how you spell Ife, and it's more information. There's like a Wikipedia page on the bronze heads, and you find them in many museums in the world. Many of them were looted and taken to England because Nigeria was colonized by the British. I also saw some at the Yale Art Museum, and many places around the world have these and many other artifacts that were taken and not given. So I like to think of that conversation and repatriation and what these objects meant and where they are now. And this is a fabric that also features in my paintings. I also make paintings now, but these bags refer to migration in Nigeria specifically. A lot of migrants use these bags to travel and move around. Even in the airport, I always say, sometimes I'm in the airport heading to Nigeria, and I know I'm in the wing heading to Nigeria when I start seeing these bags and people. I'm like, okay, I'm in the right place, I'm at the right gate. But I like to think of materials and the narratives they carry, what they mean. There are many things that you see a fabric and you immediately think of something, it has an association, and this fabric is one of them for me. So it features in my work sometimes. So moving on to early works, at Parsons, I was trying to discover what my artistic vision or vocabulary was, and I had no idea what I was doing. But fortunately, the program encouraged exploration, experimentation. Many people were put off by that, but actually it helped me a lot because there was no right or wrong answer. It was more like, what do you want to say and how can you say it? And I use this image because I'm interested in how I use like plexis and acrylic at the time, and now I'm working with glass. It just seemed like the right medium at the time was these acrylic sheets that I would cut on a machine and put text on it to think of women's role in society. And the yellow ones have actions, the red ones have like names and roles of authority, and the transparent ones have people's names on it. Thinking of the domestic class in society in Nigeria, because we have a lot of people in the workforce that work in homes as nannies and maids, but mainly women and women from a lower class. So that was one of my main projects when I first got there. And it made me think of how dynamic art is, like how you have one vision and there's many interpretations, many ways of executing an idea. And by the end of the program, I had tried a lot of things. I tried paintings, and I used to be a painter, but it didn't really quite feel right. And I had all the former inspirations I showed you, and I started exploring that. I was like, well, I want to see how these look together as a sculpture, as me playing with the materials and bringing together a cohesive idea. So I started making these self-portraits and incorporating some of the actual fabric we use as gele, the head tie in Nigeria, which I got from home, and using the bags to make the leaves. And I really enjoyed letting myself go, letting myself make what felt real to me and real to my background, and then sharing that with the world. So I made a series of them and used different colors. I focused on many plants that are native to Southwest Nigeria at the time. And the wood, for me, just felt like a natural element to the bust. I like to think of the hybrid of the body with nature and human beings and nature and how we are connected. And that's something that I started to explore more in these portraits and sculptures. One major part of my art career has been residencies, which I'm in one now, which I'm really glad to be here and working with the amazing team in the hot shop. But residencies really changed how I felt I could access materials and work with different mediums. And this is a short video of one of my recent residencies at Next Haven. I think of an artistic practice in stages, it's a sense of discovery, and I think from discovery can stem other ambitious projects. I don't sketch, so I have to make stuff as it comes to me. So it's a domino effect, I like to call it, where one work informs the other. And sometimes I make a work and that just takes me into a different stream of a series or a different body of work that comes about from that. My name is Layo Bright, and I'm a visual artist from Lagos, Nigeria. So that's a more recent residency, but the first one I ever did was at Grounds for Sculpture. I was very privileged to get the 2018 Outstanding Student Achievement in Sculpture Award, and it came with the residency at Grounds for Sculpture. I don't know if any of you have ever been, but it's a really amazing place. They have incredible sculptures all through the grounds. It was founded by Seward Johnson, and he has an atelier, and it's incredible. It's a huge space. You walk through the grounds, and there's sculptures everywhere of every size. So this is the work I won with, basically incorporating some of those bags and making them into the shape of mattresses and beds and abstracted bodies to refer to the detention of African migrants in Libya at the time. And these are some of the works I made, getting bags from different locations in the world and putting them together with the mattresses and hand sewing everything. And eventually those works were featured in an exhibition at Maryland Institute College of Art, which was my main first ever group exhibition outside of a school context. And in 2021, like the first video showed, I attended Next Haven, which is founded by Jason Price and Titus Kafar. And basically they take emerging artists. They have 7 artists and 2 curators. So you live and work with the curators for 10 months. You get a free studio and you make whatever you like. And the curators then curate a group exhibition of all the artists. And by that time, I had started working with glass and made these fused and slumped glass portraits. I started by sculpting the figure, slumping glass to make the face over mold, and then fusing all the elements together. I was very interested in caryatids, which are women's portraits that you find in buildings and places and in architecture, thinking of power and positions of authority. So in the group exhibition, they hung from really high up on the ceiling because of that effect, playing with the architecture in the space. And this is an install view of that. This is one of the glass paintings that are recent. The actual bag that you saw earlier is used as a canvas in my works, and I overlay it with fused glass tiles. Most recently, I am a visiting artist fellow at Urban Glass in Brooklyn, New York, where I have been making works there for about 6 months now. This is one of the works I'm finishing up, which is also on view in the galleries here. It's an addition sculpture. Started by making the sculpture in clay, then did the lost wax casting technique, made it in wax, and then made a one-time blow mold, plastisilica, chicken wire, chopped fiber in there. I really love mold making. I really love sculpting. So it's really nice to be involved in the process in that way. And I've been working with the team, or assembled a team, a gaffer and his assistants, and we've been finishing up the addition, blowing into the molds, and this is images of that process in progress. And that's what it looks like on the inside. You can see the details of the face and the leaves and the eyes and such. And on the right is some of the colors we've worked on recently. Some are in clear, some are in blue and purple, and they will be in exhibitions later on this year. So this is one of the additions. This is Dawn Golden Brown, and that's like a side view and a front image. Also, if you haven't been in the galleries yet, there is one on view in a two-way mirror, as Jabari said. Curated my work in the show. Most recently, I've been working on a small sculpture there. So that was the initial sculpture on the left in clay, and then and on the right is the wax version. And we just worked on this recently. It's now in glass, and it has a gold film, gold leaf on top of clear glass. So I don't have an image of that though. Some recent exhibitions I've participated in. This was a solo show from fall of 2022 at Monique Meloche Gallery in Chicago. And with this one, I had my first fountain that was fabricated. And I worked on with a team at Urban Glass, between Urban Glass and Brooklyn Glass in New York. So it is blown glass, and I have blown glass flowers and leaves at the base with pebbles. And I'll just show you a video of that walkthrough shortly. In recent times, I've been thinking a lot about home, being away from home, being away from family, and reflecting on a lot of the important people in my life, including my great-grandmother and my grandmother, who are the subjects in the work. My name is Layo Bright. The title of my exhibition is Rock Haven, and this is my first exhibition with Monique Meloche Gallery. Rock Haven is the name of my maternal grandparents' home in Osun State, Nigeria. Growing up, my family and I would visit often and still do to this day. In thinking of Rock Haven and all the memories there and all that has been shared, it made me think of how one can find renewal in family, can find ideas of rejuvenation, can feel safe. And for me, water and a fountain was a way to think through those ideas. I have two bodies of work on view. There are the relief glassworks, which are these portraits of my great-grandmother, Sholabomi, and my grandmother, Tinuola, who kind of face each other, and it's a dialogue for me. It's a conversation that is a silent conversation between these figures, the relationship they had, and the influence they've had in my life, even though I didn't meet my great-grandmother. The second body of work that's on view is a glass fountain. It's a black glass fountain, and the title of the work is The Thorns and the Roses. Glass as a material is really interesting to me because of how dynamic it is. It carries that power where it can be reflective. It is a very resilient material, and it's also fragile. And for me, talking through family dynamics, I feel like that's the perfect medium. So the glass relief works on view are of the series To Have and To Hold. And To Have and To Hold is a book that my maternal grandparents wrote, and it was just chronicling their lives. And I thought it was such a beautiful thing. I was telling a friend, I think about an exhibition as a chapter. It's kind of one phase of the different things I'm thinking through. And so for me to make work based off their story and their book, I'm glad that I could be part of their story and then create this body of work as a result of that. Okay, so this is one of the early exhibitions I participated in, curated by Tariku Shifarah, who is an abstract artist. And this was during COVID. As I said, this was post-MFA and early works in the portrait series, exploring my identity and cultural background. And this was it on view. However, nobody could actually get in the space or see the show, and we didn't have an opening because that was the week of COVID and shut down in New York City. So many people could only see it online and view it online and go through images, but it counts as one of the first shows I ever participated in. Also during COVID, I started working with glass. I took a class in kiln casting at Urban Glass in early 2020 and learned how to cast glass and cast portraits. And I really enjoyed working with it. And I basically bought a small kiln, a small Paragon kiln, and used my COVID first year to experiment and play around with my kiln. And that's when I started slumping and fusing and trying to think of how to make that hybrid sense of a portrait come into a relief work. So I was working from home. I had a full-time job at the time, but used most of the time to put stuff in the kiln and experiment. And these were some of the first works I made. Actually, the one on the right is the first one I ever made and is on view in the galleries as well. But I was thinking through like African masks, but I didn't want to make an abstracted one. I wanted to make one on real people that I was invested in and who I knew. So this series features my mom, and they were made during us talking through COVID and trying to navigate the unpredictability of the times. And I really enjoy this series because it's the first one of my glass portraits. Later on in 2020 or 2021, I believe, these featured in an exhibition at Parts and Labor Beacon run by Nikhil Bhushan. And this was a great show. Some of my heroes were in the show, and I couldn't believe my work was in dialogue with theirs, but it was really great to see my work in this context and experienced by a new audience. This is another view next to work by Derek Adams on the right, and both works were shown together, which I really enjoy that. Also in the exhibition curated by Jabari, there are two works together, two masks on the wall as well. These are some of my glass paintings, again, early works that were in an exhibition, Woman to Woman at Bode Gallery, that featured women artists and not working with glass, but working with different mediums in an unconventional way. So it was really nice to have my first European exhibition featuring my glass paintings. This is Dawn Gold Topaz, the one on view in the galleries, and it initially featured in Woman to Woman as well, next to the clear version of the bust. This is an install view from the earlier exhibition you saw, featuring relief glassworks from the To Have and To Hold series, as well as the Thorns and the Roses, the glass fountain. That was produced between Brooklyn and Tyler School of Art, where I was doing an artist fellowship. And these are views of Tinuola Maiden at Sunrise, an image of what I thought to be my grandmother younger. There's a chapter in the book, this is based on, that she and my grandfather wrote, where she talks about her youth. And I find that really interesting in, my youth now, like looking back on her life and thinking through how we go through different stages in life and we never know where we will turn up. But I just found that really interesting to look at her own perspective from a younger point of view. And this is To Have and To Hold too, based on my great grandmother as the matriarch that I trace everything back to. She's the one that we have mostly a close connection with, and I know her stories, and storytelling is very important in my works. I think of everybody having their own life story, and we all have chapters in that life story, so this exhibition was just exploring that through glass. And this is an image of the fountain. This is a recent exhibition titled The Glass Show at Halsey McKay Gallery. It's still on. It's in the East Hamptons, New York, till December 31st, in case any of you are out there. But it features artists working with or exploring glass, which I found really interesting, just seeing how everybody's approaching glass in the community and, some people, and the different perspectives we have to share. So I have a mask on the wall to the left, and Dawn Golden Brown as well. This work is titled Bloom in Purple and Pink, and that was on view at NADA Miami 2023 recently with Halsey McKay Gallery. And this is some of my more recent work with cast fused flowers, also some gold leaf, and the face is cast. But coming from the earlier portraits, I've been incorporating more flowers in my work, which I'm also working on here during the residency. This is an install view of the booth. Yeah, these are recent works. I started working on the Bloom series, which is what these are called, December last year, in terms of just playing around with ideas. A lot of my works just come about based on me trying new things. I don't sketch, so I make everything and then assemble it together and compose my image based on little elements. So I worked on each individual flower and then did the portrait separately and then fused it together, which I enjoy. I think it makes me try out new palettes that I wouldn't normally be interested in. I don't really like orange, but this is one of my favorite pieces now, which is so odd to me. But I think that's the potential of experimentation, which I really enjoy in my practice, just letting things happen, and happy accidents drive me in new directions. Like the spring green and the orange looked really weird to me when it came out of the kiln. But when I assembled the portrait, I needed a pop of color, and that really helped me finish this piece. This is bloom in spring green and purple. And again, one of the first pieces I made this year after I figured out how to make the flowers. Initially, when I started making this, I didn't know it would be a piece. It was on my floor of my studio. I work on the floor in order to see my works properly. And it was on the floor for a few months until I was like, yeah, let me just put it on a frame and put it on the wall. And then it actually looked really interesting to me. And again, it's one of the works I look at now, and I'm really interested in new directions and color. Where I used to work with a lot of black and gold in the past, now I'm really interested in vibrant colors and bringing out the liveliness of the portrait and different personalities of the work. And in terms of upcoming stuff, I will be participating in Investec Art Fair in Cape Town, which I need to make work for, but that is February 15th to 18th with Bode Gallery, which is a German gallery. And my solo exhibition at the Aldrich Contemporary Art Museum is opening in spring. That's April 7th, and it will be on till the fall. So if you're in Connecticut, do feel free to pull through. Some of the flowers that were made here will feature in that exhibition, which I'll be taking back to Brooklyn and completing in my studio there. There's also Nada New York, where I'll have a solo booth with Superposition Gallery run by Storm Asher. She's amazing. And a solo exhibition in the fall of 2024. I haven't confirmed other stuff, but it's really nice to be able to show the work I'm making right now and become more ambitious. I'm trying to also think of scale and scaling up and just sharing the work with everyone, which is really great. So thank you. Thanks so much.